up earlier and she just walked away. It's not scrolling around. Thanks, Trish. Everybody ready? Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Our first item is our Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you read our mission statement?
The mission of Marshall Public Schools is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. I make a motion to approve it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote.
Thought I was did.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No problem, sir. It is approved. Public forum. This is your time if you would like to approach the board. Moving on to our presentations. It's an honor every year to hear our Truth in Taxation. We have a new presenter this year. Leon, it's a pleasure. The floor is yours.
Thanks. All right. Thanks for coming to the Truth and Taxation Levy Information Meeting. I'm just going to jump right into it. So Minnesota Truth and Taxation law requires cities, counties, and school districts to follow certain steps before adopting the tax levy for the following year. The law requires a mailed notice for each property owner, which describes the tax levy, and those are mailed out at the end of November. School districts are required to hold a single meeting about the budget and levy. The meeting by law has to take part after 6 o'clock. That's why we're here tonight. And then the meeting dates, locations must provide at the same time or prior to certifying the proposed levy, and meetings have to take place in between November 25th and 28th. Requirements for tonight's Truth and Taxation hearing. The tax levy must be for taxable taxes payable in 2019. Current budget must be discussed. Provide and discuss information on the distribution of its revenue by revenue source and distribution of its spending by program area. The proposed percent increase or decrease and reasons for the increase or decrease must be discussed, and the public must be given time to ask questions. So basic general education formula. This has gone through each year to share with you guys the funding compared between the funding and the inflation rate. Last year, legislature approved 2% increase for each year. And as you know, general education revenue has not kept up with inflation. FY19 would have needed to increase an additional $618 or 9.7% per pupil just to keep in line with inflation. And this just gives you a visual of what that looks like in between the two.
Yeah, I think MREA has said that there would need to be a 3% formula allowance for the next 12 years.
Just to catch up.
Have the same purchasing power as what a dollar
Yeah.
did back in 03 or something.
That's a good point as you advocate. Levy cycle, I added this one. It's kind of a nice demonstration of what the levy cycle is. We'll be following the red line on the way down. So from June to December, we work on the levy. We submit the figures to MDE. So our initial amounts can be calculated. The board then approves the maximum levy in September. Between September and October, adjustments are done by the district and the state. And then in December, we do the truth of taxation presentation. The next line down here, the levy is certified so we can work on the budget from January to June, and it's usually in June that you guys will approve the original budget. And then the next line down is the school year of January or July through June, and that's actually when the levy is, we actually receive the money for the levy that you guys are looking at tonight. And then from June or July until November is when we do the audit, and then it shifts right back up to the continuous cycle. So the funding accounting overview, all districts divide their funds into separate funds by law. We have ours in 6 funds: the general, food service, transportation, community service, capital outlay, and debt service. Tonight we're going to be looking at the Marshall Public School District budget, a comparison between the 18-19 original budget and the 17-18 actual numbers. And I just want to note these are the 18-19 original budget numbers. We're currently working on the revised budget that hopefully by the end of December we'll have some news for you on that.
When you say original, Dion, you're talking about the one that the board approved in June?
June, correct.
Okay.
Yep. So here we have the 17-18 actual revenue compared to the 18-19 budget. And you can see it's basically remains the same. We've got some additional or capital outlay increase, and that's mainly due to LTFM state and levy increases. This one just shows you a graph of the comparison. As you can see, 74% is in the general fund, which is typical for a school district. This slide here shows where we receive the general fund revenue. This is just general fund revenue. And as you can see, for 18-19, 81% of the revenue comes from the state, where really only 11% comes from the property tax. Comparing 18-19 to 17-18, the percentages really haven't changed at all. This slide here compares the 17-18 actual to the current 18-19 original budget for expenditures. And again, everything's pretty in line except for if you look at the capital outlay increase. Again, this is due to some of our capital outlay projects, the one-to-one technology, as well as some of our LTFM projects. And then last meeting you guys approved to close the Fund 6 construction fund because we had zeroed that one out. This just shows a graph again of our expenditures. 74%, just like the revenue, is spent in the general fund. General fund expenditures by program. This here, as you know, is the business of teaching students. A majority of ours is going to be in people, and 47.68% of this is regular instruction, which is, again, typical of what a school district would be. Next one in line is the special ed at 20%, and then the third one is our sites and buildings at 9.57%. General fund expenditure by object code. This one breaks down the general fund expenditures by object code. Again, the majority of our expenses are going to go to salary and benefits. And it's almost 85% of our budget goes to salary and benefits.
Yeah, can you go back one slide?
You bet.
I think if we add those numbers up for regular instruction, special education, and instructional support, those are, and vocational, and I'm sorry, I can't see that number on the bottom, but I think it's about 77% of our expenditures go really what you could say directly into the classroom. You know, instructional support might be like theoretically a paraprofessional, obviously regular instruction, teachers, licensed staff members, vocational instruction, career and technical education, and special education. So I think that's probably comparable. We haven't.
Rule of thumb is about 80%.
Yeah, I think there used to be, several years ago, there was some discussion about 70% as the threshold you needed to, a school district needed to sort of illustrate that 70% or more of your expenditures were going into the classroom. So to be at 77, 78%, whatever my quick math is, I think is pretty good, really.
What's the pupil support? Would that be included too? Or what's the difference between that and
Pupil support's going to be like your nurse.
Paraprofessionals,
social workers?
No, actually, it's the 700 code is going to be your nurses. It's going to be, I think maybe library aides, that type. Yep.
So Dion, if we're 4.3% on administration, do you know what the state average is?
I don't, but that number also includes our administrative assistants in that code.
Seems awful low. That's fine.
Yeah. No, but honestly, it's a good point, Jeff. Because there's things even within these that you know, education-wise.
I was just thinking if we were to hire a grant writer part-time or something like that, that would fall into the administration.
Could, yeah. Yep. So this is our budget publication. This is submitted to MDE and posted to the public to view. And again, it just breaks down our last year actual to the original budget this year.
this is placed in the newspaper.
Yep. And our website. Tax impact. This is our levy comparison. These are the final numbers of the by fund of our levy limitation certification for payable 2019. Again, the levy revenue, as explained earlier, won't actually be recognized or received until next year. As you can see, it's the general fund, and I want to stress the general fund is actually decreasing by 0.87%. And the overall levy is only increasing 0.15%. So we're basically breaking even for the year on this. This graph breaks down the levy, how it's broken up from the last slide. 52% is general. Just kind of briefly go over some of the things about the property tax. On the next slides, it kind of gives a step-by-step of the process, and you can see how limited our action actually is in the process. So step one, the city determines the estimated market value. Step two, the legislature sets the formula for tax capacity. Next, the county auditor calculates the tax capacity for each parcel property once they get those two things. And then up here, legislature sets the formula, which determines the school's levy limit. And then step five is where MDE calculates detailed levy limits for each school district. And then this is where you guys step in. This is where you adopt the maximum levy in September. And then we have the final levy in December. And then finally, the county auditor divides that up for the final levy and determines tax rates, multiplies the tax rate times the property tax capacity to determine what the school tax for the property is. So some of the factors that cause the tax bill for individual property to increase or decrease. This is going to be for ours because ours is so low, our percentage. This is going to be a majority of it, the change in your property market value. But other things would be your state legislature, increase and decrease in enrollment, changes in your class, voter approved referendums, and then school board actions. I put this up. This is just a blank copy of a property tax form, which property owners should have received. And I just wanted to point out a couple of areas of importance. First, at the top, it shows estimated market value. Because the school district, again, increase is only increasing 0.15% this year. If your property tax under the school district is going up, you'll want to look up here. I think it's kind of important because if your tax is going up, most likely it's because your estimated market value is going up. We don't have control of that. Second one that we want to look at is where it says board building bond credit. This is the ag credit. Unfortunately, they put it up here instead of down by our school, the school tax, which would be nice if they showed that in line with it. But this shows what the credit is, so important for people that have ag land to look at that. This is just a sample that I wanted to show because you can see here if your property value stayed the same on this house, down here where it's the school district, it actually would have decreased by $17.48. Not to point out, but compared to Lyon County and Marshall, which actually would increase even when the value stays the same. But as you can see, if the school district one had increased, you'll want to look up at your market value. This house increased by 16.8% in market value, and therefore their school portion of the taxes increased $131. So an overview, the total 19 proposal property tax levy will increase from 2018 by $9,923.71 or 0.15%. State law asks that we explain a majority increase and decrease to the levy. There wasn't a lot, so didn't have a lot to point out. One of them was the local optional and board approved levy decreased by $26,849, and that decrease is mainly because of our enrollment. With the uncertainty of the funding of VPK, we didn't include the, I think it was 41 adjusted pupil. And then that's times by our local operating and board approved, which is 724 per ADM. So that's why the decrease is there. Early childhood decreased, ECFE decreased 4934, and that the net tax capacity that is used in that formula, the 2017 net tax capacity, which is used for payable 2019, was actually lower than the 2016. And then finally, the debt excess increased 53,397, and that's mainly due to us not reducing our debt excess, but just to note, if we don't use that, that would decrease next year.
Did you say the tax capacity, the net for the city of Marshall went down from 16 to 17? Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might have had something to do with ag land over at Marshall, something along those lines.
Okay, so this is the tax levy history. This shows the percent increase or decrease over the last 5 years, and you can see that the school district and the school board has done a nice job each year decreasing what the increase actually was. Just wanted to touch a little bit on the 40% school building bond agricultural credit. It was part of that $650 billion tax bill signed into permanent law. And I think a lot of people are, when is that going to go away? Right now, it's permanent law, so it's there to stay. The slide here actually shows what the total savings in the Marshall Public School District for 2018 was. That was $309,210. And it's important to note that this credit is not on the levy certification. As I showed you guys, it's actually on their tax statement. So if that was actually on the levy certification, our levy would have decreased by $299,286, or been a 4.4 reduction. So I think it's important to show that, because technically that effect is helping taxpayers out.
The other thing about that, Dion, too, that you and I have talked about is that reduction because of the ag to school tax credit doesn't increase everyone else's taxes. It comes in the form of state dollars.
Correct.
Yep.
That's been something that's misconception too out there too, is that it's increasing others, and it's not. So we proposed to the school board the following tax levy to be certified in the amount of the $6,754,168.55. And that actually, the next step would be the board action at the December 17th meeting, where we recommend the approval of the levy. Any questions? Pretty straightforward.
Very good, thank you. Board forum, board members, anything you'd like to bring up? Discussion items. This is our second reading of policies 801, 802, 805, and 807. Any questions? Moving on to our action items, approval of the resolution stating the intention of the school board to issue general obligation bonds. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's open for discussion.
Dion, can you expand on this a little bit?
Yep. So last meeting, you guys approved for us to do the roofing project by state statute. If we're going to do a bond, an LTFM bond, we have to have you guys approve the intent of that, and then we can't go out to bid for 20 days after that. So basically, I just want to explain. So the LTFM bond is shifting money from the general fund on our levy to the debt service. Now, by doing that, we actually certify the maximum levy, so the levy doesn't go up any. And by doing that, going from general to debt, that's actually going to save the ag land the 40%. So property tax, commercial tax doesn't go up, but the ag actually gets a decrease. And so what we're doing is you guys approved the 10-year LTFM plan. Within that plan, we had planned to do these roofs anyway. I think it was over 5 years. We're planning to shift the money so it's a 4-year bond.
Questions, board?
And then Dion, I think everybody knows this, but then regular budgeted dollars would be used to pay the bond back over the next 4 years.
Correct.
Okay.
Very good. Any questions? Please vote. It is approved. Personnel, do we have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second. It's open for discussion. Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Board members, anything else? over